fly, Eagles flying. You on the team, touchdown, touchdown. Time to get Jalen this ring. You don't really want to start a thing. This a bird gang nation, baby. It's a Philly thing. Hater, and you looking like you type trash. I'm just here calling the Philly the podcast. And we can call a man dog or watch Miles score off the handoff. Rest of the division, your man soft. Jackson like Sean, hunting like Randall. Season here, really time to do them in. Your boy Philly Fresco. Thanks for tuning in.
What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco, and today it is Philly the podcast. So today we have a very, very special guest, man. One of my favorites. If you guys watch this show, you know how much I talk about his show, John McMullen. John, it's an honor, a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Joe. No problem.
Definitely. So I'm excited. I'm excited because I do watch your show a lot. So I'm excited to kind of pick your brain and kind of see how you feel about this off season, past season, and a little bit beyond. But before we go too crazy, I just want to hop right in and ask, basically, for the second year, right? You look at these OTAs, they obviously have already started for the Eagles. They're light work, right? It's very light work, to say the least. And again, we're looking at their second year. It seems to be a trend. I want to know your opinion on that. How do you feel about this front office and this coaching staff's approach so far when it comes to this offseason work?
Yeah, I'm kind of torn. I'm more of an old school guy, but I do think the Eagles are ahead of the curve when it comes to the NFL. And look, this is how I describe it, Joe. You can't practice what you're not allowed to practice. So, obviously there's no pads or anything of that nature in the spring. So, right off the bat, it's like, okay, what's the offensive line and defensive line doing? Other than if you're going to do team drills, 11 on 11s, I joke, it's like, what are they, stand-ins? They're trying to get their SAG card in Hollywood. I mean, they can't do anything. So, why, cosplay or whatever you want to call it and have them stand out there just to have 11 players. So the Eagles have kind of done that cost-benefit analysis, and they'll work on 7-on-7s. And, obviously that's the skill position players basically on offense and the passing game, and defensively the back seven and how they're going to defend the passing game. So, that's what you're allowed to work on under the CBA in the spring. So that's what the Eagles are going to work on. And they're not going to worry about the other nonsense. And it's going to be, you're working on your technique and fundamentals in individual drills if you're an offensive or defensive lineman. And, when the pads come on in the summer, we'll get to see those guys and what they can do. And there's some other, running backs, for instance. You don't know what a running back is until the pads come on and you can see them at the point of attack. What can they do? So basically the NFL and the NFLPA have done this negotiating over a number of years, and they keep scaling back this offseason work, scaling it back. So the Eagles have said, all right, let's forget about it and let's get to week one as healthy as possible. So that's sort of where they are. Now, the part where you can argue, though, Joe, they don't have mandatory minicamp. There's two teams that don't have mandatory minicamp, them and the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, Cincinnati is obviously coming off a Super Bowl berth. They played the longest season in NFL history. So it's a little bit more understandable from their perspective. From the Eagles' perspective, this is the first time I've ever seen a team. We know that term grass time. Doug Peterson used to use it all the time. They have turned down grass time.
Yeah.
And I've never met a head coach that doesn't want to practice to this day. And that includes Nick Sirianni. So this is more of an organizational decision. This is more of a Howie Roseman, Dr. Arsh Denoda, who is their chief medical officer. This is their decision. And I kind of agree with them. I don't think it's that. I'll say it this way. Through, you have 90 players on your offseason roster. 1 through 40, probably the key players that the Eagles are going to win and lose with. They don't need offseason work. They don't. Now, 40 to 90, they could use it. And, certain guys, developmental players, it's probably going to hurt them. But, and that's what you're sort of trying to weigh. What's more important? And from the Eagles' perspective, let's keep 1 through 40 as healthy as possible for week 1.
I hear that. Yeah. And, playing the long game, like you said, try to get to week 1 with the same team you started OTAs with. We were able to kind of do that last year. Obviously, had some nicks and bruises here and there, but that was probably the healthiest, going into week 1 we were in a long time. So, and you brought up another thing. You brought up a lot of these guys that need to develop. I think a lot of people key in on Jalen Hurts and think he's the only one that has to improve. But there's a lot of guys, going into their second season, third season. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, is there any, player or coach realistically that you have your eye on, not named Jalen Hurts, that you have your eye on that you really feel it might be a make or break type season for them on this roster?
Well, there's a lot of guys. I mean, there are guys that you don't even know if they're going to be here. Jalen Reagor, Andre Dillard, Isaac Seumalo, guys who could be traded if the Eagles want to go in a different direction. Marcus Epps at safety. They like him a lot. Is he going to be a starting level safety in this league? He's somebody to keep an eye on. Quez Watkins, is he a true wide receiver 3 in the NFL? I don't know that yet. Who's going to be the backup tight end? Dallas Goedert's great. If he cleans up maybe some of those drops, that's a top 5 tight end in the NFL. But boy, behind him, who's the backup tight end? Jack Stoll, Grant Calcaterra, Tyree Jackson. People forget he tore his ACL in week 18. So that's something to keep an eye on. Right guard might be the most interesting positional battle for me because it's going to be Isaac versus Jack Driscoll. And I think the Eagles really, really like Jack Driscoll. In fact, I know they do. Yeah. Nick Sirianni loves him. And he's going to be the starting right guard in 2023. So, do you want to start that early? Do you want to kickstart it a little bit early and try to move Isaac, who makes a lot of money? That's kind of interesting. And then basically the whole defense. I mean, because Jonathan Gannon, who people know and people joke, and I have a good relationship with him, and I like him a lot. I think he's a really good coach. He didn't have a lot of bullets last year. He really didn't. And all of a sudden, you bring in Jordan Davis and Hassan Reddick up front, and you have, when is the last time, Joe, you said this team has depth at linebacker? I wonder how they're going to go about it. I think TJ Edwards is the most underrated player on the Eagles, and he might not even have a spot because of Nakobe Dean and Kaiser White. James Bradbury, Darius Slay, and Avonte Maddox, that's the best trio of corners this team has had in a long, long, long time. Safety, still a bit of a question mark. But I'm excited to see what Jonathan Gannon puts together, and I think you're going to see multiple fronts. Everybody's talking, is it going to be 4-3, 3-4, everything. 3-4, 4-3, 5-2, all kinds of multiple fronts. That's what you're going to see this year with the Eagles.
Yeah, and I like the analogy or the similarity that you made with the bullets and his gun. He didn't have much talent that he could utilize to use his system. So you're saying, you're thinking it's going to be a totally different defense from last year as far as scheme wise. You think he's going to kind of open up that playbook a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, he calls it overhang players. So I see people in the stream, are they going to use a 3-4? Jonathan calls it an overhang player, and that's what Hassan Reddick is. So, I think those labels are kind of antiquated, 30 front, 40 front, because everybody's kind of multiple. So, Hassan Reddick's going to be a Sam linebacker. He's going to be a defensive end. He's basically going to be playing on the line of scrimmage a lot. And when it's 3rd and 10, he's going to rush the passer. You're not paying a guy $15 million a year to drop back in coverage. They're going to say, go get the quarterback. So, it's going to be him. It's going to be Josh Sweat on the edges. And the more interesting part in the sort of NASCAR package, which is, when you're going after the quarterback in those 3rd long situations, what do you do with defensive tackle? Can Jordan Davis be on the field in those situations? Maybe not early in his career. How much does Fletcher have left? We know Javon Hargrave can rush the quarterback. So just a lot of tools that JG didn't have last season.
Definitely, yeah, and I would be remiss. I think my stream would beat me up if I didn't bring up Jalen Hurts at all. So I do have to ask at least one question, right? But Jalen, look, I think he has the whole landscape in front of him, right? Everything's now in his hands. He can basically do whatever he does on the field is what's going to happen, in my opinion, with the Eagles. But I kind of want to know, in your opinion, what are you kind of looking for out of Jalen Hurts? And do you think it even matters? Because I've even heard people kind of saying that this is just kind of a lame duck year, and how he has that arsenal and he's ready to, go get a quarterback next year. Like, is there something that you think Jalen Hurts can do to be the long-term guy here?
Yeah, sure. Win football games, make a deep playoff run. One of the things, look, the Eagles, they wanted to upgrade if they could upgrade. And by that, I mean, look, if they could have convinced Russell Wilson and said, Ciara, you'll love it in Philadelphia. Come get, Russell to come here. They would have done it in a half second. He's like their white whale. They wanted to draft him back in, 2012. So they've always wanted Russell Wilson. Deshaun Watson, they love the player. And they considered him a significant upgrade. So those were the 2 quarterbacks. If they could have gotten Russell Wilson, if they could have gotten Deshaun Watson, I call them FU players, Joe. It's not that they don't like Jalen Hurts. There are certain guys who are so talented, they say, F you. I got to go with this guy. He's just, a Hall of Fame level talent. And that's where the Eagles were. But I think the underreported part of all the Eagles' interest, and everybody brings this up, they had no interest in the Jimmy Garoppolos of the world, or even the Baker Mayfields, or the Sam Darnold, or anybody else that you could argue would be either a lateral move or a slight upgrade. They had no interest because they think Jalen has a significant upside. One of the things they love about Jalen, really dating back to college, even when he got benched, he's improved every single year. Usually with young players, you have sort of ebbs and flows. They take a step forward, they might take a couple steps back, they might get going in the right direction. He's gotten incrementally better. They love his leadership. They love his work ethic. And it's his team. So, one luxury if you're a player in this league and you're on the field, if you're successful, they're not going to take you off the field. But if he has the same year as he did last year, which was pretty good, by the way.
Yeah.
The Eagles know they're kind of topped out at that point. So, then you're talking about, on a good year, you might win 9-10 games. You might make the playoffs. You might even win a playoff game here and there, but you're not going to make a significant Super Bowl run. And they want to make significant Super Bowl runs. So, at that point, they will make a decision. But here's the big thing, Joe. At $2 million a year, the Eagles are fine with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
When it comes to deciding, are we going to pay this guy $30 million a year? because that's what it's going to start at for what Jalen Hurts did last year. Pro Bowl alternate, playoff appearance. If you're a veteran quarterback, that's worth $30 million. The Eagles will not pay him $30 million for that level of success. So he's got to keep improving.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up a couple of those names, especially Baker Mayfield. I went live earlier, and my whole chat was literally like, "Would you get Baker?" I'm glad that you kind of nipped that in the butt, and I agree with that 100%. I actually applaud that philosophy from Howie Roseman. I think far too often you see people want to take the incremental step. You can almost kind of call out a team like Washington that. You talk to a lot of people and they say that Carson Wentz is the best quarterback they've had. Maybe not the best they could have gotten, but that's the best they've had, and they were happy with that step, which is cool. But us as Eagles fans, I think we've seen good enough quarterback play that we kind of expect either all or nothing, right? You're either going to get that guy that's great, or we're going to stick with what we have and we're going to develop him. So I like that. I do want to talk about some other guys that got cut, though, because June 1st is kind of like, depending on which type of team you are, it's either Christmas or it's one of your worst days of your life, letting go of all these guys. So, a lot of guys, are kind of on the block now, but a name that people keep on bringing up because we are weak at that safety spot, like you said, is a Landon Collins. Is Landon Collins or a trade for Jesse Bates or a Chuck Clark or anybody like that, do you think that's palatable for a Eagles organization right now, or do you think they want to stay young there?
I never say never with Howie. I wouldn't. Landon Collins is not the type of player they would go after. Chuck Clark, I mean, Philly native, starting experience. The Ravens signed Marcus Williams. They drafted Kyle Hamilton, so he might be the odd man out. Now, they say they want to use a lot of three safeties, so maybe they're telling the truth. I don't know, but you can guarantee how he's called them, and he will continue to call them and say, look, what's it going to take? And if you could spin off Jalen Reagor for Chuck Clark, you do it in a second. Jesse Bates, I mean, you bring up June 1st. That's an interesting part. Now, Jesse's a star safety, and he got franchise tagged by Cincinnati, which is a little bit over $11 million. And I think a lot of fans don't understand. If you acquire somebody like Jesse Bates, you're going to renegotiate the deal, similar to what the Eagles did with A.J. Brown when they acquired him. But when you're talking about a guy on the franchise tag, what has to happen is he has to sign the tender, which he has not done yet. Then you have to trade for him. You have to fit that original contract under your salary cap and then rework the deal. So it could be 10 seconds, Joe, but you have to fit that original contract under your salary cap. Pre-June 1st, the Eagles couldn't have done that. They couldn't fit that 11 plus. Now, post-June 1st, because they get some relief with Brandon Brooks' retirement, Fletcher Cox is reworked when they cut him and restructured everything. They got some money. Now they can do it. Now, that one hurdle. That hurdle has been sort of accomplished, so they could acquire him now. Problem is, not only do you have to pay him a ton of money, you're also going to have to give up significant compensation. And we're talking, if you look at it, Jamal Adams got 2 first-round picks. Minka Fitzpatrick got a first-round pick. Are the Eagles going to give up a first-round pick for Jesse Bates? It's a long-winded way, that entire explanation. Don't expect Jesse Bates. Concentrate more on Chuck Clark.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. And honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. I was probably one of those kind of fantastical, fans that maybe thought maybe it wouldn't take a first round. But now that you bring that up, that's very true. It is going to cost us a lot in the way of picks. Now, I do want to talk about this front office while we're kind of talking about, bargaining and everything. There's been a lot of things happening with this front office, a lot of shakeup, a lot of scouts, obviously Andy Weidel going to the Steelers. And then we hear that, Jeffrey Lurie's son is now taking a front office role. I don't think that's that much of a shock. I think that we all kind of probably knew he wanted him to kind of be the next heir, but is the sum of all parts a little bit weird? Because I mean, this is maybe me just with a tinfoil hat on, but like just seeing all these movements and then Jeffrey Lurie's son coming on, is there any equation to that, or is it just kind of all happening this offseason? Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, it depends. Well, I mean, Julian's going to take over this team when Jeffrey Lurie decides to step away, whenever that is. He's 70 years old, but he's got no intention of stepping down anytime soon. But yeah, when he does, Julian Lurie will be the owner of the Eagles, and he will take over the organization. So there's no tin hat from that part of it. I mean, everybody knows that. Everybody knows. The part is, and Jeffrey has said in the past, at some point, if Julian wants to do it, because he's always been, if he developed some kind of passion for something else, he didn't want to push him into the family business, so to speak. So, once they got past that and Julian indicated, no, I'm not a moron, I want to run the Eagles. Then it became, I mean, at some point he said it will become formalized. And the part that you're kind of talking about, the Eagles have suffered pretty significant attrition in the front office, and it just gave them the opportunity to do it at this point. So it's more that than anything else. But down the road, I mean, obviously he's very close to his father. So it's another sort of layer you have to deal with if you're Howie Roseman or anybody else. So when we talk about these sort of battles in the past in the front office, whether you want to go to Howie and Chip Kelly or Howie and Andy Reid or Howie and Louis Riddick, back when he had more of a problem getting along with people. A lot of people, Julian's very close to Alec Halaby. I don't know if your listeners know, he's sort of the analytics guy. So some people have speculated there might be something that Alec would gain more power, but that's something you have to wait and see. And he is going to get a promotion. The Eagles are going to announce their new front office pretty soon here, probably within the next week or so. But Joe Ferrari's going to get a promotion. I think Alec's going to get a promotion. So it's something to keep an eye on down the road. But right now, I mean, Howie's had a great offseason. So for those fans, and I know there's a lot of fans that don't like Howie, he's pretty entrenched right now.
Yeah, and Howie Roseman, you hit it on the head. I mean, Howie had a great offseason. There's not much we as fans can really be upset about. But I do have one last question I want to ask you before I get you out of here. Look, the Philadelphia Eagles, I don't like asking record predictions, right? I've had Derek Gunn on here a couple times. I had him on last night. I told him I'm not going to do record predictions. No, I'm not going to get no clips out of you. But I do want to ask you, now that we did add all this talent, we were able to kind of fill in some holes, some obvious, gaps in talent that we had. What do you think is the bar of success for this team? Do you think it's you want to get even better than last year and maybe get a playoff win? Are you looking even higher? What's your kind of bar or measure of success for this team this year?
Well, the expectations are higher. I mean, they made the playoffs last year, right? So they have another easy schedule. Part of that is playing in the NFC East. The Cowboys seem to have come back a little bit, and the Eagles have added more talent. So, yeah, I think everybody would be disappointed if they didn't make the playoffs. I think the goal is to win the NFC East and then go from there. I don't think you can look at the top teams in the NFC, the Rams, obviously, Tampa Bay because Tom's back, Green Bay, Even though they've taken some hits, they still have Aaron Rodgers. San Francisco's still really good, especially if they can figure out the quarterback position. But, then you probably have Dallas and the Eagles, and they're probably going to be battling to see who's the top team in the NFC East. And I would, I've kind of said it like 2 through 52. I think 2 through 53, excuse me. I think the Eagles are now better than the Cowboys. Can I say the quarterback is better than Dak Prescott? I can't say that. So I think the Eagles have closed the gap. Until they prove it, it's kind of hard to say they're better than Dallas just yet, but they're getting closer.
Definitely. You got to beat the champ to be the champ, right? I think the Eagles fans will be very excited
Rick
to go
Blair,
out there.
I like it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Eagles fans will be excited
man.
to see us maybe return the favor. That sweep last year. I have a lot of Cowboy fans that are in my chat a lot of times for some odd reason, and all they talk about is how they've beaten us the last 3 times. So I would love to end that streak for them because I'm tired of hearing that. But John, this was an absolute pleasure. I really am a huge fan of you and Jody. So I really do appreciate you taking the time and just coming on here. If there's anything you want to say to the audience, anything we should be on the lookout for from you guys, please take the stage is yours.
You can watch us every day, 8 to 10, if on Birds 365, myself and Jody McDonald on the Jacob Media YouTube channel, jacobsports.com. You can read me at Sports Illustrated, read me in Philly Voice, read me at Jacob Sports. So too many places to find me, Joe. Too many.
You're a hard worker, man. That's why I'm so surprised you had the time for it. I'm just so honored. I really do appreciate it. But I do appreciate everybody in the chat as well, man. You guys be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, join the family on the road to 4K. So be sure to join, man. And definitely go check out Jacob Media. You guys know they do an amazing job on over there. So and we got Tone over there. Tone's a really good friend of mine. So shout out to Tone. I know you guys work with him over there. But we are going to get out of
producer, man.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy.
Great job.
Tone's an awesome guy. He's very humble too. I love the guy, man. But yeah, we are gonna get out of here. So I appreciate everybody, but y'all know what it is, man. It is Fly Eagles Fly, and we are out of here. Peace.
Everywhere. This is for you.
Fly Eagles flying on the team. Touchdown. Time to get Jalen this ring. You don't really want to start a thing. This a bird gang nation, baby. It's a Philly thing. Hater, and you looking like you type trash. I'm just here calling on Philly the podcast. And we can call a man dog or watch Miles score off the handoff. Rest of the division, your man saw Jackson like Sean, hunting like Randall. Season here, early time to do 'em in. Your boy Philly Fresco. Thanks for tuning in.